President of Iraq and Cuba get into it. It's all good, though. It's all good. It's all love.
If you have a few minutes, you want to change the channel? We didn't actually even get to politics, but we got to do at least a little bit. All right.
Sure.
Yeah, at least a little bit. And this is too much fun. Yeah. Because you don't. This is the thing I miss actually in the country. You don't get people talking across the silos anymore. Not in an earnest way, in a way that's public, in a way that actually tells people it's okay to be friends with somebody who you deeply disagree with. I think we need more of that.
But I've convinced you to change your position, right?
No, you have not. But you have convinced me. But you've convinced me that we actually share more premises in common than I thought. Right?
Yeah, I'm a capitalist.
Exactly. We could start there. We have that in common no matter what.
I'm just a little bit more compassionate than some others.
But. Yeah, but I think that.
But anyway, let's get to politics.
Let's get to politics. The only thing is, assume the best when you can of somebody who you disagree with too, because it may be a compassion for a different thing. And
no, I understand.
Assume the best is all I'd ask, even to some of the folks you're talking about. Politics here. All right. So here's what I find funny. Okay, for years. And you consider yourself voting Democrat in recent years, or you're a Democrat?
No, I'm independent. I'm independent. And honestly, if there was a non-MAGA, when Biden was the candidate, if there was a non-MAGA Republican candidate, I probably would have voted for that person.
So, and it just, maybe to you depends on, I would like to convince you on this another day, it depends on how you define MAGA, right? Making America great, I don't think you object to that. In fact, I think you believe some of the things you
that's presumption. That's presumption that it wasn't great before. I'm an American exceptionalist.
I'm an American exceptionalist too. I think we need to make America greater than it has ever been. That actually should be the goal.
Well, that's not what they said, right?
Make America greater than it has ever been before. So here's the funny thing. Here's the funny thing on the politics of this, because I know you're on the other side of this. You're supporting Kamala Harris for president, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'm supporting Donald Trump for president. But here's an interesting, before we get into the side tizzy that'll send political discussion into. For years, right? For years, the concern of many earnest Democrats in this country was that the Republican Party was oppressive on issues like abortion, was thoughtless on issues like gun control, believed in leaving the working class behind, was intervening in foreign wars in places like Iraq that expended our taxpayer money and left the country worse off. That was the real concern that people had, is the Republican Party was...
For Democrats, yeah.
Yeah, they were ideologues, right? The Republican Party were ideologues on guns, abortion, foreign wars, and leaving the working class behind.
And again, I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent.
No, I know you're not. Fair enough. Well, now I know that. Now you mentioned that, right? But we can have the discussion either way. So it's not necessarily addressed at you, but we're talking about this.
That's fine. No, I understand.
So now you get a candidate, and here's the thing that most people don't realize, who's actually not an ideologue, certainly on historical Republican terms at all. True. Not an ideologue at all in any sense, actually. Who on abortion is against a federal ban on abortion, is a little bit more pragmatic, you could say, is in certain other issues. On gun control is softer than some Second Amendment advocates, even myself in many cases, would advocate for. You have a foreign policy that is against fighting pointless foreign wars or intervention. A Republican is publicly against that old Iraq war. And yet, now the criticism of that candidate is that, he's not principled enough, right? So from the Democrats.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that. No. You're mixing the principle that people are talking about. It's ethics. The man told Mike Pence not to certify the election. The man called the Secretary of State, or was it governor, I forget, and asked for 11,072 votes. The man has stolen from more hardworking Americans.
You were against Trump in 2016, though. You were against Trump in 2016.
Right, but he was unethical then, and he's still unethical.
And in 20, right.
That's right, but that's the whole point. I actually started off supporting Donald, and then I got to know him better.
When did you support him?
Like 2015, I was like, he's great. He's he's not a typical Stepford candidate. I thought that was a positive.
I would think that's a positive, right? A business guy who's pretty practical,
but then I got to know
not
him.
ideological.
A big part of that is I didn't think he had a chance, and so I just wanted to kind of screw things up in traditional politics that I'm not a fan of.
Okay,
but the bigger
supportive. Okay, that's kind of fun.
Right. But the bigger point is Trump University, Trump Soho, stole $4 million from a friend of mine that had sued to get it back. Mike Pence, 40 out of 44 people.
Just take a look at the 4 years, because each of these are just going to be separate sort of personal attack rabbit holes. Look at the country in those 4 years.
No, they're personal attack rabbit holes. They're legitimate things that actually happen.
So do you think the country, do you think the economy prospered and border crossing issues were far better under Donald Trump under those 4 years than they've been in the last 4 years? You disagree on that premise too.
No, because if you look at border crossing, what was Obama's nickname? The deporter in chief. If you look at actual crossings, they were lower under Obama, and when Obama came in, they were higher, and he continued to lower them until the last couple months. On the economy, Obama took a fucked up economy and improved it, and Trump inherited that, right? And actually, inflation grew by 25% under Trump over Obama. And what was the third one?
You get border and economies where I started talking about.
Right.
So we hit the all-time low on border crossings in about 2019, 2020. Okay.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure?
It's actually the chart that was turning to when he got shot, right? That was exactly
right, but that doesn't make it right.
It went up in the first 2 years, but then they only implemented the Trump controls about a year and a half to 2 years.
Let's just put that off to the side, and we'll check that to make sure that border crossings weren't lower under him.
The lowest point was lower than it's ever been. The lowest point, not saying the average, but the lowest point was lowest than it's ever been. Yeah.
Okay, we'll check. But Obama deported a multiple of the number of illegals that Trump deported.
Which you're in favor of, by the way? Are you in favor of deportation?
I don't have a problem if they're here illegally. Just do it compassionately. Don't just stick them in a cage. But I have no problem with removing people who are here illegal, particularly recent. Because who knows the number, 10 million, 11 million, whatever it is. But you can't just all of a sudden, how you approach it is critical. And Trump has not said a word about it yet. And he's been talking about it forever. But again, that's not the core issue. You want to talk about
that is a core issue. I
get that. But you know what? The one certainty about the office of the President of the United States is the complete uncertainty. That you have no idea what comes next. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And so in my mind, and I think a lot of people's minds that oppose Donald Trump, is that you want somebody there that is educated on the world, but more importantly, just is ethical, right? So that they make ethical decisions. You want somebody when there is no precedent, it's never happened before. You want somebody that has hired not people who are most loyal, like Tony Soprano might have done, but hired the very best people. And those people want to stay and work for them, not that they're loyal. You want somebody whose first inclination is not to do what's in their own best personal interest.
So
right?
Can I just say,
you can't deny that's Donald Trump.
I'm reluctant to get into, because I'm not a particularly partisan hack type Republican versus Democrat person.
This has nothing to do with partisan.
And so I'm also very critical of the Republican Party, so I'm reluctant to say what I'm about to say. But when you think about this, right? You look at someone like Biden over the 4 years. I know it's Kamala Harris the nominee now, but what is your attitude towards the fact that you talk about self-interest? Nothing bothers me more than politicians looking after their self-interest when they're in office. What is your perspective on, while Joe Biden's the vice president of the United States, his son serving without a qualification or an iota of a qualification on the board of a Ukrainian state-affiliated energy company?
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous, right? It was a mistake. Yeah, but his son was an adult in his 40s, right? As a parent I can't control my teenagers. You're not going to control an adult.
But there's good evidence that he's not looking the other way.
And he's going to jail. And that kid is going to jail. And on top of that,
felony gun possession charge.
No, I get that. But on top of that, you had Comer and others who tried to impeach Biden and did a complete investigation of it, and who came to the conclusion that there was no there in terms of the big guy, right? So, but let's just say it was completely investigated, and we haven't even gotten into the Mueller report, right, and what they came out with.
Yeah, but the Mueller report, that's actually great to talk about, because that impeded the first 2 years of his presidency on the basis of
that's not the issues. Yeah, but you're talking about policies.
The heart of this.
Look, I
am concerned about policies. I'm deeply concerned. I have to admit.
No, I'm not unconcerned. I'm not unconcerned about policies, right? But it's just like a CEO of a company. Would you hire somebody that has a long history of stealing from people
See,
of being unethical.
I'll tell you,
You would not, and you know it.
Is Donald Trump a perfect person? No, he is not. Am I a
No,
perfect
we're not
person?
talking about
I'm not.
minimal
Are you a
imperfection.
perfect person?
No,
You're not.
no.
But
We're
we have to ask
not talking
ourselves,
about
who's the actual best
have
president?
you ever stolen money?
We have right now. I've never
No.
stolen money
Have
from
you
anybody.
ever-
No.
Either have I. Right? Have you ever had a company?
I have no evidence to say that Donald
Have
Trump
you
is.
ever?
Yeah, you don't just.
Oh,
get to
I do
say
for
that.
sure. Ask Barbara Corcoran, right? You know, she had to sue to get her money back. Ask anybody from Trump University. Ask people who bought condos in Trump Soho. Ask people from, Trump Foundation that gave money there. Ask people who are giving money today, and he's using that money for his legal fees.
So,
this isn't like a little discretion. This is a habit.
Mark,
that's why I
think
can't support him.
Yeah. So look, I think that's less about politics and more about maybe like a criticism
Yes.
of one man. But
but that's the whole point.
So look,
you were talking about
talk,
ethics.
dude.
You would not. Have you ever told any of your employees to short pay a vendor
No.
just to try to save some money?
No.
Either have I. Right? What do you think about somebody who does that? You know what was crazy to me during the trial?
See, I think a lot of what's happened is, because you saw this in the New York trial. I don't know what your perspective is on the New York trial, how closely you followed that.
I did.
I think that trial is fundamentally unjust against Donald Trump.
Okay.
Right? Do you agree with
Let's
that?
just say it is.
Do you agree with that?
I don't.
Cause,
No, not necessarily, because,
I think
look,
if you're in
he
the position where if you say a prosecutor comes for you, right? Because you're a business guy, you can empathize with this, right? If you're running a company.
I've had the SEC come after me, so I get it.
But let's say you have a lawyer's bill that comes in and you classify it as a legal expense. All right, but part of this was you were paying off hush money to Stormy Daniels. And the government's theory of the case is no, you should have classified that as a campaign expenditure. Think about this. If you had to classify that as a campaign expenditure, had he said that's a campaign expense, so he uses the campaign account to be able to pay hush money to Stormy Daniels, they should be and would be coming after him for that, right? Because you shouldn't use political campaign.
But that's what he did, which is what he
didn't use the
did.
campaign money. He used the whole government's whole theory is he should have been using the campaign money. He used personal money for it. So my point is, in a lot of these cases,
it was
they were
in
going to get
kind.
him
The whole
either
point
way,
was
right?
Okay, so first of all, Hillary Clinton did
And I just
something
worry a lot of this
right?
has created distortion. My guy here is giving us like signs. We got to.
No,
I'm going to this magazine interview. This is fun. If you're down for doing this again and continuing, I would
Sure.
love it. Hey, do you know?
Sure.
This is random. Do you know Reid Hoffman or not? Not really.
Barely.
Okay.
A couple emails.
I
Yeah, a couple
actually
emails.
was interested in getting because he also seems like a guy who